That frightens me. Everybody goes silent. Do I look threatening in any way? Or welcome to the Health Nugget. Today I would like to share some thoughts with you about dementia treatment. And here's the this is Mr. Alois Alzheimer, who in 1906 studied a patient of his whose name was Frida, and she went. She was completely demented in the end. He studied her brain, and he was the first neuroscientist who anatomically decided or described plaques in the brain. On the top left, you see the left half is the normal brain section, and on the right, you've got a demented brain, so there's a severe loss in brain structure. And the thank you. And the plaques take on different forms, as you see here. They can be diffuse, they can have a dense core, or they can run along nerve lines, or also be found in and around arteries. In 1984, the amyloid beta protein, that is a name for the substance of these plaques, was described chemically. And in 1991, a genetic mutation in a protein that gives rise to amyloid beta was linked to an inherited form of Alzheimer's disease. So basically what they found was a genetic variant that occurred in Alzheimer's disease, and they thought, now we've got the key. If we can get our handle on this mutation, then we can solve the Alzheimer problem. We're not there yet. I have to go back. I have to tell you a little bit more about this story, and that is that from that time onward, meaning from Alois Alzheimer's time forward, everything focused on these plaques. And the idea gained ground that in order to win the battle against Alzheimer's or dementia is the big expression we use to describe all forms of dementia, because there are various forms of dementia, Alzheimer's being one of them, that if you could get rid of the plaques, then you would get rid of Alzheimer. Literally billions of dollars have flown into this research, targeting the amyloid plaques with no breakthrough. And in the early 2000s, the scientific community was researching this field, was becoming discouraged, and they were digging down a rabbit hole. They couldn't find an answer. Just then, two things happened. There was a paper that was published in Nature in 2006 that proclaimed the discovery of a so-called toxic oligomer, which they found in amyloid plaques. And the discovery of this toxic oligomer would now lead into the direction of how to get rid, block it, or eliminate it by some drug that they would find in order to eliminate this toxic oligomer. To cut a long story short, this paper published in Nature, and you must understand, Nature is the top scientific journal as far as medicine and other fields of knowledge are concerned, when you publish in Nature, it is the state of the art. This paper was published in 2006, meaning it also was quoted in about 600 to 800 other journal quotes. That is how an idea is disseminated in silence. And to cut a long story short, this study was subsequently found to have used fraudulent data. And after the evidence could no longer be controverted, the author of the paper had to resign, which he did earlier this year. And here you see from Science a note. It says, Alzheimer's scientist resigns after university finds data integrity concerns in papers. This happened at the University of Minnesota. It was a French researcher by the name Sylvain Lesny. Now, these guys, they have fallen victim to the Greek thinking of reductionism. That means the Greeks thought in terms of synthesis as well as in reduction. So if you had a problem, in their mind, the highest achievement was to think backward till you come to the causal agent, the prime mover, the beginning of it all. And it is strange that this Greek mindset misses out on the creator, who is the prime mover, who is the origin of everything. But they do not understand that the creator created all things to work in a web of interdependence. In creation, it is useless to look for the single causal, all-explanatory cause, except you look for God. Around about 2000 also, it was interesting that scientists came up with other approaches to the problem. And here you've got one book that was written by one of these scientists, by Bredesen. And what he found is very interesting. He applied a variation of lifestyle factors to people that had cognitive impairment. And the effect of his study you can see here. On the right is the so-called RECODE study, whereas the chemical substances that had been developed over time, and you must understand, pharmacology is big business. Every year, Chase Bank invites private investors to discuss the most promising field in pharmacology, where you can put your ducks in order to multiply them. So if you look at what these drugs did, first of all, they had to be pulled off the market because the side effects were so severe. And you see these are on the left, the right-hand column pointing downwards. That is when you do nothing. And then the following three are the results from pharmaceutical drugs. They do something, but at a high price in terms of side effects. And this RECODE program, which was ignored by mainstream science, had the greatest results. But nobody took notice, as is usual when you cannot make any money out of it. And what I would like to show you here is that there are basically 5 laboratory markers that you can take in order to show whether your program works. And the first one is the high sensitivity CRP. That's an inflammatory marker. Whether you have a tooth that is bothering you, or your tonsil, or something in your gut, or in your joints, or whatever, if there's a problem, your HSCRP will go up. And if you treat whatever that is, the HRCRP goes down. So you can use HSCRP to predict a heart attack. If over years your HSCRP is at a high level, you have a high level of a heart attack because you've got an inflammatory process that involves the vascular structure. Hemoglobin A1C is a hemoglobin that is attached irreversibly to a sugar molecule. That is, when your blood sugar rises above a certain level, the blood tries to buffer the blood sugar by binding glucose. That means if you can get your blood sugar metabolism under control and lower your HbA1c, your outcome also in terms of mental health will be good. Then you have that is the fourth line, you have the triglycerides. These are the fats basically that come from what we eat. And the HDL is a fraction of cholesterol, also partially dependent on what we eat. The next factor is homocysteine. Homocysteine is a substance that accumulates when your system doesn't have enough vitamin B6, folate, or B12. If you're lacking in these three vitamins, your homocysteine goes up, and homocysteine is toxic to the brain. And the last one is vitamin D. Another couple that has done work, and Dean Sherzai was an NIH researcher. He's of Afghan descent. And they also, both their parents, one of their parents or both of their parents from both sides, they died of dementia. And then something interesting happened. They said, let us go to a place where we have exceptionally good circumstances as far as dementia is concerned. And guess what place they chose? Loma Linda, because Loma Linda is a blue spot, and people get older there, much older than the average population, if they are Adventists. It's not the air, it's not the water, it is not the vibes in Loma Linda, it is basically what you eat and what you do for your lifestyle. And they started to study this, and meanwhile they have a brain health program that you can book online, or you can read this book here, The Alzheimer's Solution. And they opted out of the chase down the rabbit hole looking for that single agent with which you can make big money. If you would take one of these drugs that the pharmaceutical industry has brought out, the cheapest of them would be $30,000 a year for a fraction in reduction of your mental problems at the price of a high side effect note. It doesn't work. So we serve a God who created heavens and the earth. He is the sole origin, and he created everything to work in a web, of which we are much familiar with. And I would like to encourage you to implement as many of these factors in your life as is possible to you. So therefore, I wish you a happy Sabbath and a good physical rest as well as a spiritual rest, because the physical rest, the sleep, is absolutely necessary for brain health and our spiritual rest as well. Thank you.